Doppo Orochi is evolving. He becomes intangible, literally has the people he's fighting view him as transparent, and then this. The narrator questioning whether the director Doppo has become a gas or perhaps a liquid, maybe something else. Highlighting in the previous chapter that Doppo was doing something similar to Masashi Miyamoto. I really enjoyed the brutal imagery of Doppo almost killing his student with this one blow. Very similar to Masashi Miyamoto throughout his entire arc, when the legendary samurai was landing his imagination slashes on all the people, and had pretty much random characters getting mind broken due to the sensation and fear that they were already killed multiple times. This isn't exactly the same, as Doppo did definitively defeat and knock out his student here, probably held back to some degree, where if he didn't, he would have probably done this, which is absolutely wild. Now in Baki Rahen chapter 55, he's perhaps doing something similar to Baki Hanma, which brings us to the cover page for this chapter. One of the best and maybe most important once again. Seems like every other Baki Rahen cover page for the chapters drops some absolute greatness. This one highlights Baki Hanma going for a kick with the following caption. As long as one has imagination, strength has no limit, which is a true representation of Baki's character, and perhaps what Doppo Orochi is going through his next evolution in the Baki story. As we saw previously, he was able to destroy one of the OG Baki characters, one of his students, Pseudo, who by the way actually tried jumping Yujiro Hanma during the original battle between Doppo and the ogre, dominating Doppo with a fury of blows that does insane damage, including one of his karate goons trying to save him, Pseudo, who was one-shot by the ogre, something I broke down in my previous video and is very important to check out for what's going on right now for the Karate Master. But the focus of Baki Rahen chapter 55 is once again Doppo Glaze, him demonstrating that he's far above any of these fodder, something that could be assumed right away, and even during the setup for the OG Yujiro battle, Doppo was already doing stuff like this, which results in a demonstration against all of his students, absolute domination to a similar degree as Yujiro Hanma. He has proved to Baki that he's without a doubt strong and maybe even capable of defeating his father, bringing us to a clash between Baki and Doppo, perhaps at a more impressive degree. So it's not like these are new reveals or demonstrations of power. But one thing interesting Itagaki put in this chapter is how karate tournaments are pretty much scripted in most instances. Something pretty interesting. He's now shitting on karate, I guess. And then the three karate goons who are now facing Doppo here. The first dude looking like Keiha, Quickfire, that's his nickname, then the ultra heavy hitter, and then Take the Tank. So three goons who are absolute fodder, and we see that right away. They literally start viewing Doppo as transparent, something you could say is similar to Baki Hanma's vibes, but overall we don't really see stuff like this too much outside of Doppo Orochi previously in the series, at least to a similar degree. Perhaps this is the more evolved version, but the second they try land attacks, they simply can't. Then the Karate Master proceeds to one-shot all of them with no problem at all. At least the first dude, about to be the second one as well, highlighting that it's likely to continue in the next chapter. Unfortunately, I know a lot of people aren't really enjoying current Baki Rahen due to the long breaks between chapters, and this one being quite short, not featuring that much content, just returning Doppo Glaze, which, to be fair, this is Baki, this tends to happen quite often, And I'm imagining people just have really never read Baki release by release, or they're quite new to doing it. Baki does do this quite often, to be fair. But like the common trend, Baki Rahen will once again be on break next week. It is scheduled to return on the 1st of December. Like in previous weeks, there could be delays, but right now, that's when Baki Rahen chapter 56 is meant to come out. Not an insanely hyped chapter, an interesting one, noting the cover page and the importance of imagination once again. Maybe Doppo Orochi is fully going down that path to evolve as a fighter. However, as I've broken down in pretty much maybe 100 videos at this point, the current version of Doppo Orochi is by far the strongest version of him we've ever seen. The young Doppo we saw in the Yuichiro side manga, or I should say Doppo Orochi's side manga with that Yuichiro chapter, was weaker than any version we saw in the main series. We literally see him in the later chapters of that manga training, pretty much considering himself weak, etc. Then in Grappler Baki at the start when he faced Baki Hanma, that was a strong and I guess a version of Doppo that had more techniques in a sense. However, we get it confirmed during the Maximum tournament, which is after the Doppo and Baki fight, that he had completed and evolved his karate to a further extent, with multiple confirmations that he's gotten stronger. Then during the little break before the Death Row Inmates arc, Doppo went on his training arc to evolve further again, confirmed in various character profile and additional stuff that he's gotten stronger. And then throughout the entire Baki story after that, we see him training progressively. Like most characters, everyone is currently at their peak, the strongest they've ever been in the story. Progression of power is a very real thing in the Baki world. Just need to restate this for those who still say random stuff about Doppo Orochi of the past being stronger than the current. That is not the case by any means. He is still a legend, and will likely put up a pretty legendary fight against Jack when that does begin, hopefully sooner than later, as we have been, I guess, receiving quite slow output and progression of Baki Rahen, at least over the last 6 months you could say. What I still believe all these chapters are for, his final preparation as the next fighter for Jack Hanma. As if he's not, this would be quite strange. I think it's pretty definitive or safe to say that Doppo vs Jack will be the next big fight in Baki Rahen. But to be fair, this is Baki at the end of the day, so anything can really happen. Goated face from Doppo once again. The smirks are representation of his ultimate goon nature. If you haven't already, I urge you to watch this video breaking down the manga version of the Doppo and Yujiro fight. Something that is actually different to the OG anime version, with very important stuff for Doppo's character and actually what's going on right now. That's it boys, laters.